Hey guys, good morning. It's June 10th, 2022, and I'm here with Jill Repp from June Tailor. And I'm not sure if you've heard of her company before, but it's very interesting. We're going to tell you kind of the story of the company. We're going to talk about a lot of the products they offer. And the best thing that I think about this whole thing is it's great for beginners. So you guys are always asking me, what's a good beginner quilt? What's a good beginner project? We're going to show you a lot of those today. So again, her name is Jill Repp, and she's going to start off by telling us about the company, June Tailor, and kind of her story with it. And then we're going to do a truck show, and then we have two really big giveaways, but you have to wait to the very end to find out how to enter those. So, and they're right there. So y'all look forward to that. So.
Well, it's great to be here. We've had a fun week. I am thrilled to be part of this show, and I want to tell you a little bit about June Tailor because this is a cool little company. And the first thing people always ask me is, was June a real person? Yes, she was. Her name was June Cranky, and she legally changed it to June Tailor after she invented this fun gadget called the Tailor board in 1961. And June was a garment sewer, so she, back in the 60s, a lot of people still sewed their own clothing. And her take on it was pressing. If you pressed correctly, you would get a great looking garment inside and out. And she invented a product called the Tailor board. So if any of you are seamstresses from years ago, you might have one, because I did. I sewed on one when I was a little girl. This Tailor board had all kinds of angles and surfaces that you could press things like rounded areas for your shoulders or seams. And she introduced this in February of 1961 and founded the company, and it was the day I was born. So I think I was actually meant to be in this, I was meant to be at this company, right? So the company is 61 years old, and again, she started it in February, and she sold this Tailor board in McCall's magazine and some of the state fairs, some of the local stores. It was $1.19 plus 34 cents to ship it. And I think it's now $60 some or something like that. So it's really come a long way. She was a pioneer. This is a lady who had a little business out of her home. Her husband made the Tailor boards. He was a woodworker, so he made the Tailor boards as a side job. And then she introduced the Tailor clapper, which is, I know you might be familiar with that, which is a wood clapper that actually helps you press seams. Wood holes heat in very well, and back in the 60s, we didn't really have steam irons. And so if you let your iron on a seam for a long time, it would actually burn the fabric. It would leave what we call seam edge impressions. So the clapper was something that you could actually put on the iron so it would retain the heat, give you a good crisp press, and sometimes we even use the clapper to kind of slap onto the wool, or if you were using velvet or something thick so that you could really flatten the seam nicely. She invented all kinds of pressing claws and pressing claws for velvet, and everything had a pressing slant to it. For about 20 years, this is what June developed, and she finally realized that women were going back to work. Women were not sewing garments as much as they had been. Discount stores were opening up, and you could get really nice clothing that wasn't terribly expensive, and it was very tailored. So she took a good look at her business, and she said, I see this quilting, this craft sewing or quilting is on the rise, and I love the math in it, and I love all this, but she said, I don't think people really realize how much pressing is affecting the way you make a quilt. So she started to develop tools for quilting, and we are a Wisconsin-based company. I don't know if I mentioned that. So her cutting boards are hard surface, which means they won't warp, and they can stay in your car if you're like in 20 degrees below zero, because we have really tough winters. So she tested these in all kinds of weather conditions. Everything she did, she made sure that it was very conducive to, when you're rotary cutting and your wrist is constantly doing that motion, she made sure that the cutting mats were easy on your wrist. And then, of course, tons of pressing tools for the quilter. You might know us, we have a lot of gridded pressing surfaces that we make right in our plant. Actually, almost everything is made at our plant in Richfield, Wisconsin, which is just north of Milwaukee. But you'll see a lot of things with grids on, and they're very difficult to produce because cotton shrinks, and so you have to shrink the cotton and then screen print it and then, go ahead and work with it. So she invented a product that many of you actually may have. It's a two-sided product. It's called the cut and press. You cut on one side and you flip it over and press on the other side. And she was just launching that project in July of '93 when she became ill. And she had a very unusual health issue that was a bug bite that wouldn't heal. And she went to the doctor and found out that sadly it wasn't a bug bite, it was pancreatic cancer. And June passed away that November. So she found out in July, passed away in November. And at that point, the family was distraught because she was really the pioneer of this small company and she was the brains behind it. At the time, I was in a role of international sales in a textile company. My degree is in marketing and I was involved in pulp and paper science, but I love to sew. And so when this opportunity came along and the family was looking for someone to fill June's shoes, first of all, I have really big feet, so I thought, well, let's see what this is all about. And I had sewn with these products when I was a little kid. My grandmother taught my 4 sisters and I how to sew. My mother sewed. We all sewed, but we sewed clothing. I'd never sewn a quilt before, but I was so intrigued by this potential opportunity that I talked to the people at June Tailor. After June passed away, sadly her husband passed away right after that, and the company was put into a trust, and her daughter and son-in-law purchased the company from the trust, and I work for them, and I have for the past 28 years. So of course the first thing I did is I took a quilting class because I knew nothing about quilting. And I knew we had this great new product called the cut and press, but I didn't really understand it. Well, guess what happened? I took one quilting class and I loved it. I became addicted to it because it didn't have to fit. You know, it was very mathematical, and I love math. And so that's basically how I started my career at June Tailor. Got thrown into my first trade show, really tried to understand this business, and obviously being there 28 years, I have loved it ever since. I've tried to maintain with product development June's pressing slant, so a lot of the products that you see are involved in pressing. But I've also tried to look at product development from the standpoint of how can we get people interested in this hobby, because it's so much fun. It's very social. I know when I was a little girl, my mom had quilting bees where everybody would, you know, get together and make one big quilt. They weren't necessarily pieced quilts, they were whole cloth quilts, and they would just secure them. But that whole concept of quilting bee or people getting together to help finish projects, I love that part of this industry, but I wanted to keep people more involved in learning it and not being intimidated by it. So having no background in it, one of the first rulers that we developed had slots in it. Because of my math, I kept thinking, why are we holding this ruler and then cutting and moving and cutting and moving? And all the people in my Quilting 101 class, I kept watching, they would be cutting and the ruler would turn. And so to me it was like, well, this should just be on a grid and you should do this, then turn it into squares. So the first ruler we developed was a slotted ruler. To me that was very practical. So you can see that when we look at product development in June Tailor, I always look at what do people not like doing. You don't like basting your quilt? Okay, we'll come up with something for that. You don't like, you know, pressing? We're gonna have great pressing tools. Because the fun is all about after it's cut and you're ready to sew and you see it all come together. Most recently, in the past couple of years, we have spent a lot of time on a product line called Quilt As You Go. Sometimes I call it sew by number. And if you ever did paint by number, it's kind of that same type of process where you're literally sewing by number. But instead of the traditional way of making a quilt where you would piece the top, layer the batting and the backing, we do it all in one step. So it's much faster, but the thing I like about it most is that you get a good result. And if you're a new quilter and you don't have a lot of experience, you will get a great result. And then you'll want to do a little bit more. So we're going to show you a lot of Quilt As You Go today. We're going to also show you some other new innovative things that we developed. Zippity Doo Done, which is a pre-sewn zipper. Again, back to my sitting in our conference room saying, what do people not want to do? We did Quilt As You Go handbags, but they said, I really want to put a zipper in, but I don't want to do the zipper. And I'm like, okay, let's figure out a way to make a zipper. let's figure out a way to join quilt blocks. So we try to take all the difficult things, make them easy, but still make them look great. So that's the elevator version of how I landed at June Tailor, and still there after all these years. Still, there's always a new hurdle to go over. There's always something new in the industry. There's great fabrics. There's always something that we can go forward and invent some new way of doing something.
Yeah, and so she filmed 6 videos yesterday, and we're going to release them from August to October. And when we show you the stuff, there will be some of them we will have videos for. But basically, if you watch all of her videos, you'll be able to make any of the projects that she shows today. I actually didn't even know how to use the product until yesterday, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so easy. So I think it's going to be great for beginners, and I wanted her to show like exactly what it is so that you can kind of see the method, so that when you start seeing the projects, you'll be able to see that you can actually do it, because it is so easy. And really it does make sense when she says paint by number, because it's kind of the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, super easy. So
should we get started?
yeah.
All right, we're going to show today, we're going to start out by showing, this is a placemat, so in essence it's like a mini quilt, right? So we're going to show you every step into making this placemat. And we start out with our batting, and our batting is actually, this is where the paint by number comes in. We actually print on this batting, so the pattern is already there. So you don't have to buy a pattern, it's already there, that's all part of it. And what you're going to do to start out, our placemats come 6 per kit, so you get 6 of these printed batting pieces. You're going to cut them all apart. We have you just leave a little margin, about a 1/2 inch on the outside edge. Select your backing fabric, and we tell you exactly what size backing fabric to cut. And then we have you go ahead and attach that using our quilt basting spray. This is an aerosol spray, and to use it, you put the spray on the batting side. So we've actually, I'll tear this away, we actually sprayed this side, and then we attached it to the backing. This is a brand new formula. We just, in fact, the Fat Quarter Shop was one of our first people that we shipped to. And the way to remember this is the new great formula is it has this green bar on it. And it's actually comes out of the can in a beautiful spray pattern. It's odorless and it will not gum your needle. So we love this new product, and this is used, but you can use this for basting quilts, basting quilt backs, whether you use this process or not. So the first thing we do is we attach our backing. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut out all of our fabrics. And when we're doing Quilt As You Go and we're working on this batting, we don't want to use an iron in the process, because an iron is actually could distort the batting. So what we want to do is finger press. So to finger press, we need to make our fabrics nice and stiff. So we like to use our Quilter Starch Savvy, and that is a trigger bottle of a colorless man-made type of fabric stiffener. And this product will get stiffer with every application. So you want to spray your fabrics with Starch Savvy. Let the starch soak in a few seconds. I know that's hard, but let it soak in a few seconds, and that will stiffen the fabrics. And then the fun begins. So our fabrics are starched, and we then are going to actually put piece number 1, which happens to be a square cut on point, and we put it in the number 1 spot. You can either pin that in place, or we can use our little fabric glue stick. This comes out purple. Don't worry about it because it dries clear. If there's an easier way to do something, I'm all for it. So let's just glue this right on here like this. And now we've got piece 1 done. Piece 2 is a rectangle, and we want to put that right sides together with piece 1 like this, and make sure raw edges are even and that you are lined up on the placement line. So all the lines that you see on this batting are placement lines, not sewing lines. We're still going to sew a 1/4 inch in where we would normally sew. So 1/4 inch in. When we're done sewing and we flip it open, it should land right on the next placement line. So let's go ahead and show what that would look like if you sewed that 1/4 inch. And we've got that done in the next step. So Our 1/4" seam is right along here, as you see. We flip it up, and sure enough, it lands on the next placement line. Now you want to finger press that seam allowance, or we use our magic seam wand, which is another gadget. In reading all of June's, all of her self-help books for pressing, she always talks about wood being such a good conductor of heat. So we did this little seam wand. You can see there's a lot of angles to it. And what this does is it's just like a mini iron that helps you flatten your seam allowances. Now, if you've got a really tough fabric that's not flattening, maybe you have a batik or something with a lot of dye in, take this angled edge, put it up against your iron, heat it up for a few seconds. It'll retain that heat, and then go ahead and press that seam allowance open. So once we get all of this covered with fabric, then we can use our iron, but for now we can't. Piece 3 is here. You put that on next, right sides together, raw edges even, and we're going to sew in a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I've got that done here. And then we'll flip that over and press that down. Then we're going to add pieces 4 and 5. So you can kind of see how this process works. It's all coming together. It's very easy to do. So I've got 4 done here, and 5 is going to go right sides together and open. So I'll kind of speed this up a little bit. But now we're adding our next set of fabrics. And again, these are all stiff and starched, so they sew on really well. And continue on, and we'll skip a couple of steps here so that we keep it interesting and fun. The last part of the process is adding the corners to our placemat. So we start out by having you cut a square and then cut that square in half diagonally. And now you're going to see we're simply just going to put that triangle right sides together and sew in a 1/4 inch. If you're ever using directional fabric, I usually take a look at it, how do I want it positioned, and then I flip it back over, and that way you make sure that you're not making any mistakes with directional fabric. But everything is meant to work in this numbered system, so you really do want to sew in order of the numbers so it turns out right. When you're done, your placemat is completely pieced. Now what we're going to do is just peek under here, and you can see the crosshairs that we actually have printed on the batting. You line your ruler up here and come down here, line your ruler here, and go ahead and trim all around the 4 sides, and then you bind. And when you're done, you have your completed placemat. So this is the same process. Everything we're going to show you today, most of the things have the same process. We attach the backing first, and then we piece by number on the top. And when everything is done, we can go ahead and press. This is what the back looks like. So as we were sewing our pieces on the front, we were actually quilting on the back, which is why it's called Quilt As You Go. You might have heard it called Quilt As You Sew. It's the same thing. Sew by number, it's all very similar. So you're going to see a lot of Quilt As You Go today, but I think we're first going to start out by showing you a super easy way to make a t-shirt quilt. And that is using our reversible t-shirt quilt kit. I think we're going to get a picture of the quilt here for you in a second so you can see what it looks like. But this is our 12 block reversible quilt. So there are 12 t-shirt motifs on the front, and when you turn it around, and there's 12 more t-shirt blocks on the back. And if you have ever made a t-shirt quilt, you know it's a little challenging. So we're going to show you a super easy way to do that today with our reversible t-shirt quilt kit. If you don't have 24 t-shirts, don't worry about it because you can use other things for those blocks, but let's at least try to get 12 so we make the front look really good. So in our t-shirt quilt kit, here's what is included. You get 24 pieces of pre-cut 14.5 inch woven fusible interfacing. And that interfacing is really important because we want to stabilize the t-shirt blocks so that they don't stretch, because t-shirts stretch both directions. So once you actually stabilize your blocks, you're going to have like a basic piece of fabric that you're working with. So we give you 24 of these so that you can actually get all your t-shirt blocks stabilized. We give you a pressing cloth so that you can press the motifs of your t-shirt, and press the stabilizer on. And this is a great pressing cloth just to have at your ironing board at all times. But if you have a motif on your t-shirt front, usually you can't touch an iron to it or it'll melt. So you put this pressing cloth over the top, get the t-shirts ironed, and then use it again when you apply that woven fusible interfacing. And then we also give you 12 pre-cut pieces of 80/20 cotton poly batting. And these 12 pieces are going to be sandwiched in between your front t-shirt block and your back t-shirt block. So you would do that sandwiching.
And we are going to have a video on this, so you'll have a full detail of how to do this, and so that's super exciting.
Yeah, we show you actually step by step on how to construct this, and even, you know, for example, your kit will contain this template. This helps you center the motif. The quilt that we showed you earlier was designed for the 14.5-inch block, but you can see you can also make 13 inches all the way down to 11 inches. So you can make smaller, but you can make as wide as 14.5-inch. So we show you the process of putting the blocks together. We show you a really easy way to quilt them, but then this is where the fun comes in, is how do you join those t-shirt blocks? Yeah, this kind of showcases our system of basically quilting the block. Is we just use painter's tape and do a straight stitch vertically or horizontally on those blocks to kind of get them quilted. And then let's turn this around so we can have it right facing. There we go. And then those blocks have to be joined. And so to join the blocks, once we get them quilted, we use something called sash and a dash. This comes in the quilt kit. You get 7.5 yards of this magical little material. And it's like a double casing. Let's see if I can get a good angle for you here. It's like a double casing that you actually sandwich in this casing. You actually nest your quilt blocks. So can you imagine you put your blocks together first, quilt them, and when you're doing that, you're just working with a 14.5-inch unit. So it's very easy to sew. Then you nest them in here, and you nest them block to block, and then when all the blocks are done, then you nest them the other direction row by row. So you're joining 3 blocks, and then you're joining 4 rows of 3. And then when you're all done, you use the binding that's also included in the kit, matching binding, and this is cut on a bias, so it's really easy to work with. And you're just going to run that binding around the edge of the quilt like you see here. You can either straight stitch it on or you can zigzag it on, and you're going to run that all the way around the edge, and you have a reversible t-shirt quilt with 24 blocks. So 12 on the front, 12 on the back. And then you need to get ready, because then your phone's going to ring and people are going to say, can you make me one? Can you make me one? Can you make me one? Because we have made the process so easy that anyone can do this. So I hope that you have a way to take all those t-shirts that are out of your drawers and not wearing them anymore, and now you can make them into a nice quilt. If you, you know, maybe you have a lot of sports t-shirts or band or any kind of concert t-shirts, it's a great way to use them. We're going to move on, and we're going to go back to our Quilt As You Go process. And I'm going to show you, this is relatively new. This is our new mix and match 12 block quilt. We're back to the printed batting, so the pattern is printed right on the batting. And what you're going to get in this kit is you're going to get 12 printed quilt blocks, 4 each of 3 different blocks. So you can see the pattern is printed right on the batting, and that is one of the 3 blocks. Here's another one of them, and then the other one is right here. So you're going to get 12 of these. You can make this huge quilt, this 12 block quilt, or you could use 3 of them to make table runners, or you could make pillows out of them, but we really wanted to showcase a unique quilt. And you'll notice, even just from the packaging, the way you lay the blocks out once you get them done, you can make this thing look completely different. It can be scrappy like this one down here, or it can be really organized like this one here. So exactly how you lay the fabrics out, how you turn the blocks and position them is what's going to make a really unique looking quilt. And then if you want to, you can join the blocks using the sash and a dash, which is what we just showed you in the t-shirt quilt kit. So this is a quilt that showcases the fabrics that Fat Quarter Shop gave us to work with, which we loved, by the way. And I have to point something out. Look at how clever they put all those reds together. So their quilt formed, it looks completely different than all the others because of the way they put the fabrics in it, the position they put the fabrics, and then how they laid out the blocks. So we absolutely loved making this quilt. And you know, this is interesting. If you look at these are all the same block over and over. The four corners are all the same, and then they did these four squares the same. And look at the look that you got. We joined it with our white sash and a dash. Sash and a dash is the joining method we use for the T-shirt quilt blocks. It comes in 6 colors: black, white, red, navy, tan, and gray. We used white sash and a dash, and then we took a piece of fabric from the collection, cut it, and basically made a little border on the edge of our sashing, and I thought that really tied it all in together nicely. We used binding that matched the quilt. You could use the binding that matches the sash and a dash. In this case, we just used regular binding. So this quilt looks as good on the reverse side as it does on the front. It's so pretty. You could have used any fabrics you want on the back, but I loved how they did all the matching fabrics on the back of this one. And here's another design. It's the exact same quilt, but look how different it looks. Completely different, just in the way we laid the blocks out and how we turned them. And again, we used our white sash and a dash here, and we did a kind of a hot pink look in there. And let's just look at the back of this one. I think this was kind of fun. We did a little color block design. Some we added the prints in, some we left solid. So you can have that back look as interesting as you might want it. Here's the exact same quilt again, only this time we laid out the blocks even differently, and we reversed out the corners. So you can make them look like it's angling to define the corner, or we're kind of reversing them out. We used navy sash and a dash here, and this wonderful machine stitch in kind of a light teal really set off that sash and a dash. We used matching binding that comes with the sash and a dash, and also did machine stitches on there as well. And then I think we did a little bit different block on the back for everyone. So again, it looks as good on the back as it does on the front. And then this design, this is the one that I was telling you, we laid this out so that it formed this secondary design here. So once you get your blocks done, you're gonna wanna really spin them around and take a look at exactly how to lay them out, because you can get tons of different looks from these. If you don't like the wide sashing, let's give you some examples of what else you can do with the sashing. So for example, in the quilt that we did, let's show this. Maybe we can get a great overhead shot. This is what the sash and a dash looks like. You can embellish it with machine stitches, put that strip of fabric over it, or what you can also do is fold that binding in one more time, and then you've got a much narrower sash between your blocks, and I think that looks really pretty too. So wider, embellish it, or narrow, leave it as is. You get to be the decision maker here of how to make that quilt unique. So that is our mix and match 12 block quilt.
And that one we are going to have a video on also, and she shows how to demo one of the blocks, so you can look forward to that.
But when we demo the blocks, it's the same process. It's all the step-by-step process of attaching the backing and then sewing through all layers on the front. This is our printed batting for our Savvy Stripes quilt. And this is a super easy quilt to make because it's basically stripes or strips sewn together. Very beginner friendly. I think it has like 12 seams and you're done. So if you find some great looking fabric and it's too beautiful to cut up, you can basically design, we'll use this quilt as our example. It's just gorgeous strips that are sewn together. This finishes off around 40 by 60, 45 by 60, something like that. But why, you know, these fabrics are so pretty, why would you want to cut them up? So you basically start in the center with strip number 1, add 2, 3, 4, 5, and continue on. So that would be a very beginner level kind of quilt. Now I'm going to show you the exact, this would be a fun thing to point out too. If you want to add more quilting to any of these projects, go ahead and do that. We've put in the number of seams that you need to really wash and wear and keep these things intact, but by all means, add more quilting if you want to. So this just shows the back of this lovely quilt. Now here's the exact same quilt where what we have done is just changed it up a little bit, and we pre-pieced these piano keys. So we use this as our strip here and down at the bottom. So if you have maybe you're a little bit more advanced, you want to jazz it up a little bit, instead of using a solid strip of fabric, go ahead and piece and use this pre-piece strip as your strip. So that's a nice cute one as well. And here is the exact same quilt again, just done out of different prints. So again, a person can use the fabric as is, or you can even pre-piece. Here, I'll just give you an example. We pre-pieced this triangle border. You could substitute this as one of your strips in your quilt. So take out your equilateral triangles ruler. We have an easy equals ruler. Pre-piece your strips using triangles, and you'll give it a completely different look. So that one is called Savvy Stripes. And then the next one we have is called Sophisticated Strips. And I love this quilt design because it can be done, first of all of these can be done with anything other than quilting cottons, but this one really lends itself well to our Shannon cuddle. But we'll show you the first one in quilting cottons. Again, this is very easy. These are all 10-inch strips. We start in the center, add our 10-inch strips, and when we get that center section completely done, our Quilt As You Go will tell you then to go here and finish these off. These are 5-inch strips and 10-inch strips, and easy to do, 11 seams and you're done. So that's how that pattern looks out of quilting cottons. Now let's take the same design and let's use this gorgeous plush velour. Look at that. This is the perfect size if you are making something for a little kid or somebody who wants that really cuddly feel, or you're in front of the television and you really just want a cuddle blanket. This is wonderful. And what's nice about it is sometimes when we sew with this, it can get a little messy, but because you're actually sewing onto the batting, it's a little bit easier to work with this fabric. So same thing, we start out with 10-inch strips and we piece the whole middle section, and then we add the sides on. And on this one, we do have you use 1/2-inch seam allowances versus 1/4, just because you're working with bigger pieces. You could add more quilting or leave as is. So we just left this as is, and you can see 11 seams, and you've got a wonderful looking quilt. And then we're going to show you one more quilt called Square in a Square. And Square in a Square is basically a design where you're starting out with a square on point, you're adding triangles and building up those triangles, and then 2 borders on the top. So we have a couple examples of finished quilts that we've done using this design. So I love this because it really focuses this. If you've got something cool to use in the center, I think this is a really pretty design. And we just kept this one really simple, and love the blue and white together. So pretty. And then that white backing. Great lap quilt for someone. And it also lends itself well to kids' quilts, because so often kids' prints will have a motif. Maybe you're doing something to match a nursery, and you want to do the motif of the nursery in the center of the quilt. You can't probably tell this from looking at it, but this is actually done using flannels. And so all of our Quilt As You Go designs can be used flannels, plush velour, or cottons as well. So those are the quilts. Now let's kind of move on to the placemats, and I think we're moving on to the placemats and table runners. So we've got 3 different table runner designs and 3 different placemat designs. This one is my favorite. It's the easiest one to make. This one is called Jakarta. It's jelly roll friendly. If you have 2.5-inch strips, you are gonna love this design, because all we're doing with our Quilt As You Go is we're starting in the center. Here's our table runner and the matching placemat, but they both work the exact same way. You're attaching your backing first, and then you're putting your strips down, and you're sewing them by number from the center to the outside edge. So this is Jakarta, all 2.5-inch strips. A beginner could do this and probably make a placemat in a matter of an hour or so. The placemats come 6 per kit, So you get 6 placemats, and the table runners, of course, come individually. Same one here shown in batiks. So again, it's just a matter of what matches your kitchen, what you like, what kind of fabrics appeal to you. You can give it a completely different look. We always want to make a Christmas table setting look different. And this is an oldie but a goodie. This fabric has, well, been around for a while, and I know it's being reprinted. It's been so popular. But again, this is always fun to pull out at the holiday time when you want to have matching table runners and placemats. So that is super easy to do. Again, we have 3 different patterns. This is one of the 3. And for 4th of July, let's face it, we got to do something, right? You might not need a table runner, but you do need placemats. So here's another really quick, easy design that we did using our 4th of July theme fabrics. And don't worry, we didn't forget about your pets. We have a pet placemat for your dog, which Kimberly made yesterday, and I think it took us maybe an hour to make this. So this is starting out with your batting is actually more like a fusible fleece, and I want to point that out because it's highly washable, and we think your pets might need to have this washed often. So we started out with the fusible fleece. It's cool because this actually has fusible on the back, so you don't need to use any basting spray. You just press your backing on, and then you cut your strips and your triangles, and you sew by number. And we didn't forget about you cat lovers. We also have this little fish pattern for your cat lovers. Now you can do binding around both of these, or for this one we just added some trim and made it really easy. Zigzagged around the edge when we were done and added that trim. So didn't want to forget your cats. And then we're moving on to these tote bags because we can never have enough tote bags, right? So our tote bag that we featured, and we sew this step by step on the program. This one's called Alexandra, and I love this one because it uses 2.5-inch strips for the whole thing, so it's very easy to put together, and they're all on an angle, so you can get a really interesting look. The kit will come with the printed batting. It will also come with this webbing, and the webbing is what we're going to use for the straps. The straps are actually made out of 2 pieces. One piece of the batting, we actually have straps printed right on the batting, and then the webbing, and you're going to cover them both with fabric, join them together so that you have a cushioned shoulder strap. These bags are quite large. They're 15 by 14 with a 4-inch gusset. So they're perfect for shopping. They're perfect as a book bag. You can use them for groceries. This is a nice size bag, but again, this is 15 by 14 with that 4-inch gusset, and we show you a real quick and easy way that we make that gusset, so it's very beginner friendly. Here's just another example of a finished Alexandra bag. If you're more adventurous, you can actually pre-piece this strip. So you might not use a solid piece of fabric. You might actually make half square triangles or some other design in here and add those in. I've seen one where people put the leather strips in here, and I think those look so pretty. So it's really all up to your taste. And here's just another version of it as well. And you'll notice our straps are all 2 pieces. So the webbing is basically inside of the yellow, and then the quilt batting piece is inside of the red. And you cover them with fabric, press your fabric around the edges, and put wrong sides together and sew them, and then you simply attach them right to your bag. So the bags are all Quilt As You Go, put together and assembled. You add the binding, and then you add the straps. If you don't like that angled look, this is our Sophie design. And this is pretty because it uses a wide 5-inch strip across the top, and then the vertical ones are all 2.5 inches. Again, it comes with the printed batting, as you see here, and the webbing. So if you have a fabric that you really want to showcase, that would look good in this area up here. And we did that with our design here because that was such a big print, and we didn't really want to cut it out. But then we just kept this kind of calm down in here so that we could really showcase this. And again, you can see how the straps show the two different fabrics. Here's a couple more versions. Again, that focus fabric looks great in that 5-inch strip, and then we left the 2.5-inch strips a little bit more calm. Did the brown to kind of offset it. This is that brown linen-y look fabric, and I think that looks really pretty in there. And one more for you batik lovers, because we know you always want to make all your things out of your favorite batiks, and they sew up so well using this Quilt As You Go method. So that is our batik. Now let's talk about project totes because this is one of our favorite. This is a relatively new product for us at June Tailor. And you can make these project totes. Let's look at what they look like when they're done, first of all, and then I can explain how the kits come. But each kit comes with 2 project bags in it, or the everything you need to make 2 project bags. You would add your own fabric. This one happens to be an 18-inch project bag, and this is the vinyl, which I'm going to show you how that comes in the kit. This is what the back side looks like. So the back side is done Quilt As You Go style, and then the front actually has the vinyl and our zippity-doo done pre-sewn zipper, and then a strip of fabric up here. This is the 16-inch one, and then you can see what it looks like on the back. So the kits for these come with the printed base fabric. This is actually a very durable polypropylene fabric. So we print the Quilt As You Go design on this polypropylene fabric, as you see here. So that all comes with it. You will also get this vinyl, and you get 2 pieces of vinyl. I have the tissue paper on here because I wanted to, it's easier for the camera to see it with the tissue, but you'll get 2 pieces of 12 mil vinyl. This is easy to sew. You can even leave the tissue on if you're sewing with the tissue on. Sometimes it glides a little bit better under our feed dogs. So you can leave the tissue on or you can sew without it. But here's the fun part. It comes with 2 of our zippity-doo done pre-sewn zippers. So the zipper is already sewn in for you. You're just going to open the casing, nest your project on one side, nest your project on the other side, and run a straight stitch along here. And then you will have your zipper installed in your project bags. So when we have the project bags and we talk about color, the color is what color zippity-doo done zipper comes in the project kit. So there are 6 different colors that you can buy your project bags in. So once you've determined the fabric you want to use, you would buy a coordinating zipper. This works just like the sash and a dash, the same way of nesting your project in here. So I think we have some examples of other colors of project bags. This uses our navy blue zippity-doo done zipper. Again, the 16-inch, the 18-inch, our pretty pattern is on the back. And in this case, we left the casing of zippity-doo done plain, and here we just put a strip of fabric on in the center, and this is kind of like piping that we used in here. So that's what the navy blue zippity-doo done kit looks like. And then here's one with the gray. So we love this sewing machine fabric. I thought it was just so cute, and again, the back is really pretty on these as well. I don't know which side is nicer. So if you're a quilter, you would want to put your flat blocks in here during construction, your thread, your sewing tools. Maybe you're an embroiderer, all your floss, your Aida cloth, everything can go in here. Art projects are perfect for these kinds of things. They're also great for travel because you can kind of see what you have, you know, what you wear. You might put your cosmetics in here. Here's another white version using the white zippity-doo done zipper. I love this fabric. This is so pretty. And here we did this kind of blue animal print just to jazz up the casing. If you've got great sewing machine stitches, I would love to see those along here. I think that would be really pretty. Here is the gray zipper. Cute fabric, isn't that adorable? Back side and front side. Again, one we embellished and one we didn't. I just love that fabric, so cute. And then we also have it in black. So six different colors of the zippity-doo done zipper. Black, white, red, navy, tan, and gray. And this one we embellished both, so I think that looks really pretty. And this really allowed us to focus on that big rose motif on the back. So again, this is your 16-inch and your 18-inch project bag.
And then this, I wanted to show you guys that you can fit design boards in there. And this video is going to be on our Fat Quarter Shop Floss Tube channel, which is our cross stitch channel. So you'll want to be subscribed to that channel to make sure you see this video. And just so you know, the pet projects, that's going to be a video for our members on YouTube. So you can look forward to that also.
Another relatively new product for us that I am addicted to making, I probably made 20 of these. These are insulated lunchbox totes, and they come with printed insulated batting, and this batting will keep things cold or warm. So you actually get a right and a left side printed onto the batting, you cut it out, and this project is even easier. This is sew on the line. You get a zipper, zippity-doo done pre-sewn zipper. that you can use. So again, there are 6 different options of these lunchbox kit. What makes the option different is the zipper color. So here's our black zipper lunchbox. And just to get an idea, these things can hold a lot. They can hold a lot of food. I also have one that I travel with. It holds all of my, everything that I need for travel. That's how big they are. I forgot to mention that each kit also comes with a plastic base. And this helps you stabilize the base of your lunchbox kit. So for example, in this lunchbox kit, we have the base in there. But what we've done with this is we actually covered it with fabric so that it stays in the lunchbox and really showcases it nicely and keeps it nice and square on the bottom. We took our lining fabric, which is the back side, and just sewed a casing around it to put that on our plastic base. And this is another example of a lunchbox kit using the white zippity-doo-dun zipper, and we embellished it with that lovely gingham, which it comes on point, so it's really nicely done. Here's another cute one. This one uses our navy blue zipper. And let me just zip this up for you. And we did a little pink trim on that zipper, but aren't these adorable? They're just so cute. Little kids can use these as a lunchbox, a little mini suitcase. They're just such a nice size. And they will, here, we've got, what do we got in this one? We've got a lot of stuff in this one. This just shows you how much you can really put in these lunchboxes. There's just room for, you know, this looks like it has 6 juices in here. Perfect to take to the soccer game with snacks in, or to any outdoor activity. And you can make one of these in about a couple of hours. We also have Quilt As You Go. We have our 3-pack of pillows. And so one package gives you all 3 designs. You get to make all 3 of them. And you get the printed batting to do that and the pattern. This is one of the first things we came out with in Quilt As You Go. So we hadn't had the zippers done yet, but if you do choose to make these pillows, you can also buy the zippity-doo-dun zippers individual, or we're just missing the gray. That's all.
Oh, the
so I'll
gray.
put
Yeah.
the gray up here. So all the sash and a dash and the zippers are the same color. But what's really cool is if you want to buy this separately, to make the back of your pillow, you're basically just, again, using that casing. You can use the casing blank. You can cover it with fabric. You can even use, here's the back of another pillow. This one is another one of the designs that comes in the kit for you. And here we use the black zippity-doo-dun zipper here. And again, we just nested the bottom half of the pillow and the top half of the pillow inside zippity-doo-dun. And then we did our beautiful machine stitching on here. And I think that really makes it just makes it look pretty on the back. So you would cut your pillow back at the exact same size as your pillow form. So if it's 18 inches, you cut your pillow back 18, just make a slit through it, and then those are the 2 pieces that eventually get put inside the zippity-doo-dun zipper. So lots of opportunity to make great things for your house, make great quilts using these really super simple methods.
And one of the things that I noticed when we were videoing yesterday is she used a lot of the same notions, because it's like the same concept. So she had a lot of notions that she used over and over. And so we're going to talk about those, just because if you're going to make one of these, I think that it's kind of essential to have these, because she used them in every video. So tell me a little bit about the notions, and you developed all the notions.
Yeah, this is a long time coming. This is the quilt basting spray, and I'm telling you, I love this formula. You're gonna love this formula, because it finally, we've got something that is odorless, and that's a really big deal because a lot of people are really sensitive to that. And the spray pattern is just beautiful. I use this to put backing on Quilt As You Go, or even if you're making just a traditional quilt, go ahead and use this to secure your layers. I know a lot of people use this for embroidery to attach things, so that's one of my go-to notions. I love to starch things, and I like that this will make my fabric stiffer with each application. Some starches will, there's a certain point where it just ends, it doesn't get any stiffer, but when you're doing Quilt As You Go, if you've got a kind of a stubborn fabric and you know you can't use that iron on it, you want to finger press and have it nice and stiff. I kind of am a starch freak. I use starch before I cut my fabrics, after I cut my fabrics, and believe it or not, I sometimes also use it on the back when I'm quilting, because it gives it just a little bit of smoothness to it that it runs under your needle quite nicely. And then, you know, I'm a cheater, so I do love this little glue stick. I use this for everything. And again, it's scary because it looks purple, but it will dry clear, as we saw from some of our examples. And then this is a great little notion, this magic seam wand. I use that to press seams open. I use it in basically all the quilting I'm doing, whether it's Quilt As You Go or not. And I love using that angled edge, and I like to heat that up on my iron if I really need a good press. So those are my 4 go-to notions when it comes to construction. And again, you know, as June always used to say, make sure your projects look as good on the inside, or for quilters as good on the back as they do on the front. And the key to that is how you press, how you assemble, and the steps that you take to make sure that everything is perfect. And with this system of this numerical quilting, you can get a great result the very first time. Kimberly made that dog placemat in literally, it was under an hour, and she was just like, this is so easy. So if you are maybe a grandparent teaching a grandchild how to sew and you want a really good beginner project, think about that. Or say you're a new sewer and you just kind of want to get your feet wet. This is very beginner friendly, great to teach someone. And I will tell you that the best part about it is it's kind of addictive, because the projects go so fast that you can get something done. You know, we all have that big quilt that we're working on, right? It takes us forever, but we love it. Sometimes it's nice just to take a break and get something completely done. Start it, finish it, and have it completely done. Or maybe you have my go-to baby shower gift. I always give one of those quilts, those small quilts. We have a Quilt As You Go set of 3 bibs. I do 3 bibs and one of those quilts. And you go to the baby shower, you give that as a gift, and people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you made this. And guess what? I started yesterday. So these projects are all very fast and easy. By all means, add more quilting, jazz them up a little bit. But if you're a beginner, you're gonna love the result.
And a couple of things I wanted to talk about yesterday that I noticed is you didn't backstitch, is that right?
No, I don't, because you're gonna encase it in the next set of sewing, so I don't backstitch, no.
She used a regular foot, and she didn't even use a walking foot. So if you don't have a walking foot, you don't have to be intimidated by that.
I don't have a walking foot. I just sew. And I use the edge of my presser foot as my guide. And I know a lot of you can take a piece of tape and kind of figure out where your 1/4 inch is, or scant 1/4 inch. These projects have a lot of, there's a lot of leeway in them. So they're very forgiving. If you just want to use that consistent measurement of the edge of your presser foot, it's about 1/4 inch, they'll still work. So don't worry if you can't, figure that out. Just if you can sew consistently, kind of along some guide, it'll have a good ending to the project.
Yeah, and I was thinking it would be great for kids, because the parent could, since you're not ironing on the batting, you could have your kid use the wand.
Exactly. Yeah, that little magic seam one, that's just going to come in handy for so many things. And what's cool when you sew this with a kid for the first time is you glue the first piece on, they immediately see, oh my gosh, and then the next 2 go on, and they get it, and they want to keep going, and they come up with a great result, and they're proud of it. And or have a gift, if you need a quick gift for somebody, you can even do that with a grandchild or a son or daughter.
And they have, we're going to have the bindings also, the pre-made bindings, if you're a beginner and don't want to do your own bindings. And the sash and dash, the zippers are also separately. We have all of the kits in stock. And we're going to answer questions. So just start popping your questions in. But one of the questions that has come through a lot is, what sewing machine do you use at home?
Well, I'll be honest, I have a really old Bernina. It is, I think, 35 years old, and it is a tank. So it doesn't have a lot of fancy stitches. It has a great straight stitch, which I love, and that's what I use.
And do you have any new Quilt As You Go projects coming out this year?
We do. We are working on a men's shaving kit. It's almost done. We are working on a diaper bag. And the diaper bag will actually open up so that it has a little baby changing area in it. So it's kind of like a hybrid diaper bag / changing bag. And then we also are actually printing our Quilt As You Go products on foam. So you're going to see some tote bags and some purses and some bags that have a lot more body to them than batting does. Sometimes people want a more durable bag for the weekend. So one of our projects is an actual weekender bag. So can you imagine like a suitcase, like a duffel bag? But with the foam, it just gives it so much more oomph. So we're going to be looking at doing that like late summer, early fall. These will all be streaming out. And if you have any suggestions on things you'd like us to reverse engineer and the Quilt As You Go process, the sew by number process, by all means, let us know, because we're always wondering what it is that you're sewing, or what do you like, what would you like us to do? And it's funny, the diaper bag came from people just constantly emailing us and saying, hey, do you have a diaper bag? I mean, there's tons of them you can buy online, but when you do this method, you can do the fancy things like put in the changing station and right into the pattern, right into the design. So let us know what you'd like to see.
And then can you tell everybody the width or the length of the zipper?
Well, the zipper comes individually as 18 inches. Or if the kit needs a zipper, lunchboxes, the project bags, for example, some of the things that you saw, then we will put a zipper in that actually matches that project. So for the 18-inch project bag, you get a 20-inch zipper. We give you a little inch leeway on both sides. And then for the 16-inch project bag, you get an 18-inch zipper. But they're sold individually as 18 inches, so you can buy them that way, or they come in a kit. We are looking down the road at just putting these online in different sizes, so you might find us coming up with other sizes. If there's something you all use, a size that everyone really likes, of course we'll do it. We just like to know what kind of projects that you're working on, so we make sure we do it in the right size.
And then another thing I would tell you guys is they're looking for some new zipper colors. And so when the video's over, we're going to want you to comment and let them know what colors you would be looking for so that she can read those comments later. Because if you put it in now, she's not going to be able to see it later. One question we're getting a lot is the minky, like what project would be good for a minky, and any tips you have on working with the minky so it doesn't fuzz, or stitching, or and we can put this one on the table to kind of talk about it.
Yeah, because this had a lot of cuts in it. Well, first of all, I don't mind working with it. I think it's not that bad. These are 10-inch strips, so they're pretty big. Once you cut them, what you can do is, believe it or not, take your vacuum cleaner, do you ever do that, and just kind of vacuum the edges, and then go ahead and sew. But once you sew that first seam allowance, I don't know if I mentioned, but this one is in a 1/2 inch, so these are all 1/2 inch seams, and you flip that over. You kind of already flip it over to the parts that are maybe annoying for you, or that are giving you a lot of grief. So what you can do again is use your basting spray to put your backing on. First of all, that'll help. And then on that front piece, the number 1 that you start with, you can use your glue stick to get that going, and then keep right on going.
And when you're using your basting spray, are you using that in the house or outside?
Well, I tell you what, you can do either. I use it inside, and I just lay down like brown paper, or sometimes at the end of a roll of wrapping paper you see that brown paper. I just save all that. I lay that down. I put my batting down. You're always spraying the batting. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. Don't spray the fabric, spray the batting, and then smooth it over the top. The quilt basting spray is repositionable, so if you have a little gap in there, you can actually lift it back up and reposition it and smooth it out. You can do it outside. I live in Wisconsin. It's not always ideal to be outside in the middle of winter. Yeah. So I actually do it in the house. The spray pattern, you can see it very easily. So you just want to cover your table with something like some kind of paper, even old wrapping paper or something, just so that you're covering the surface in case you do have some overspray.
And I wanted to show the pillows. We have people asking about envelope pillows, but what you can do is they have them written with zippers on the back.
Well, we have some step outs here.
But if you don't want to do zipper, you don't have to. You can just change it to be envelope. You don't have to make it exactly as they show it, but it gives you the chance to use the batting.
Yeah, in fact, if you buy the pillows, you'll notice that we show you the envelope where you're basically turning over you cut the back a little bit bigger, turn it up to make a hem. That is certainly one really easy way to do it. The zipper method, you would take your zippity-doo-done zipper. I can show you exactly how this works. You would take your zipper and then cut a piece of fabric about 2 inches. I pressed under 1/4 of an inch here. And here's all you've got to do is you're just going to lay that pressed edge, so the finished pressed edge, on the edge of the zippity-doo-done zipper. And you're going to notice a stitching line where we sewed the zip in. You're going to notice a stitching line right here. Put this right over the top, so my finished edge right over the top, and just run a straight stitch down here. So I've got that done here for you. So now this is a raw edge here, and my finished edge is sewn on. And eventually what I'm going to do is just simply take this, tuck it right underneath the top side of the casing, and press it. So my bottom casing is here, and my top casing has this edge finished off. So here's what it looks like when I've got them both done. Raw edges are still there, and here's what it looks like when I've pressed them under. So you can open this up and see my raw edge here, but the casing is still intact. And then what you're going to do is you're going to simply slide 1/2 of like the pillow, either the top or the bottom. You're just going to slide that right in here into the casing, and you're going to run a straight stitch down here like we've done here, and then you'll take your top section and put that in here. So either method is great. That we teach the envelope method in the instructions. You can definitely use that. Then you can either stitch the back shot, use hook and loop tape or anything like that, or you can use the 18-inch zipper. And again, you don't have to cover it with fabric. I just like to see that look. You could put machine stitches on the casing, or if it's the back of the pillow and you want to leave as is, leave as is.
And then can you explain how they would cut the zippers down to size if they need to?
Sure. What you always want to make sure that you do is this zipper pull will slide off. So when you purchase it, it could slide off on either side. So keep it in the center. And every time you are done working with the zipper, you want to just tack over the ends so that you don't accidentally let the zipper pull fly off. So these are tacked. But we simply just cut this with the scissors. The whole zippity-doo-done zipper, you can just literally cut this with the scissors. It cuts very nicely. Just make sure that that pull is in the center. If for some reason your pull does fly off, if you go on our website, we have a little troubleshooting guide on how to put that pull back on. And we teach a method where you tape a dinner fork to your table, and then we have you slide the pull on. So don't be alarmed if your pull comes off. We'll help you get your pull back on. Cut the zipper to size, and then when it's ready to be sewn into your project, we just have you tack over the top, just run back and forth, machine stitches, and your zipper will stay. You won't accidentally pull that zipper pull off.
And then can you add another zipper pull to this?
You can add another zipper pull. You would have to add it before you did this stitching.
Okay.
Yes.
And then we have some people asking, and I wanted to kind of explain it more so that it would make sense, let's see. So you can see here, this was like the first stitch. And she started about 1/4 inch away, and then you just sew over it. And then on the back, you're gonna see that there's just a little bitty line, and that's okay, but just so you know, that's how it looks on the back. And of course, one thing she did mention yesterday, which I thought would be great to mention, is as your quilt, say these are piece 1 and piece 2. If you're gonna add quilting, you would add it now before you add piece 3 and piece 4. So any quilting you wanna add, you wanna do that step by step as you go. And can you tell everybody, I know we talked about the batting being 80-20, how well do the projects wash?
They wash very well, but if you're going to wash it a lot, I would pre-wash your fabric for sure. And then starch it, and then start sewing with it. So it'll act like any other typical 80-20 batting.
Yeah, and then I'm going to show you the buckets that we have. Oh, we're just going to talk about them. Okay, so we have 2 buckets, and we're going to give away to 2 winners. We're going to announce the winner June 15th, which is next Wednesday. Ashley's going to put the winner in the community tab. Any questions you have for Jill, put them in the comments. She'll be looking later. They also have a YouTube channel called June Tailor. So if you buy one of the kits from Fat Quarter Shop and you have questions, You can also look at their videos before our videos come out. And to enter to win, what we want you to do is comment and let me know like what size zippers you would like, what other colors of zipper, sash and dash and binding you would like, and what is your favorite project that Jill showed today. So we want you to comment all three of those, because that's going to really help the June Tailor Company know kind of what you're looking for. Thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome. It's been a blast. I've had so much fun here. And we really got a lot accomplished in a couple of days.
And I'm so excited because now when everyone asks for beginner projects, I have a video to refer to. Yay! So guys, have a great weekend. Don't forget to bid on my eBay auction for the Uvalde quilts, and I will see you next week.